Okay,
There you go.
welcome everyone. Welcome friends. Another Thursday. Delightful to be here and see your smiling faces. Exciting things. I always give you an update what's going on around here. We just had a hurricane, Zeta, go through here. And I think the winds were still hurricane force winds when it got even this far inland. So I'm going to apologize in advance if there's background noise. It's because there are trees down on our street and there are chainsaws going on as we speak, as well as blowers trying to clean up the debris. Shaner Sensei says you can't hear it, but it's pretty loud here. So we had super high winds and a lot of rain, and I think it's maybe moving out over the Atlantic now. But anyway, is the hearing okay? Do you hear it? It's really loud for me. It's okay for all of you? Okay, great. Well, we'll get moving. I want to thank you for all of your writing to me. There's a lot of enthusiasm about managing pain. So Shaner Sensei, what's the name of this again? If it's not pain management, what is it again?
Self-care.
Managing pain. There's a lot to that linguistic difference that hopefully will be clear to everyone. I'm real kind of specific about not calling this pain management for reasons that I explained, I think, in detail in part 1. But it's hard to get everyone trained to say managing pain. Think of it this way: managing, ing, it's an activity. If you're the person suffering from chronic pain, you have to embrace that activity 24/7. It's like the translation of kiyodasu, extend ki. It's incorrect. Dasu makes it a verb. Ki is extending. So just as ki is extending, you're managing pain, something that has to happen from inside you. You know, this is different than somebody treating you, giving you opioids, a shot, steroid, whatever it is. This is training people to change their relationship with persistent chronic pain. So we're in part 3. So I'm going to do my disclaimer here, as I said, as I promised I would do every time, just to put it out there. You know, of course, I am not a medical doctor, nor am I offering medical advice, but I am going to discuss evidence-based self-care practices documented in peer-reviewed scientific journals that present mechanisms that in combination help us to reduce as felt pain. Okay, I got that out of the way. So let's just jump in. Or let me just, as I see your faces, does anyone have a question before we start? We're going to pick up where we left off. I'm going to give you a brief reminder, and we're going to jump into metrics. If you have your camera, if you can turn your camera on, I'd love to see you if that's possible. Hey, Leslie. Okay, so no questions then? All right, well, I do appreciate your feedback. Hey, Tim, thanks for turning that on. Nice to see you. Kirsten, nice to see you. Oh, this is so much more friendly. I can see all you guys. Sally, nice to see you. Wow, this is great. All right, all you got to do is ask and people turn it on. That's nice. Thank you. Okay, Shaner Sensei, if you will help me out going to the deck where we left off last time. Actually, if you could go to slide 19, that would be great. Okay, we're back to our friends here, 3 orders of body-mind awareness. The reason why I'm starting here again is because today I want to share with you the logic. There's a real logic, there's a real strategy of how this is going to work, and probably where you can see the logic itself is in these metrics. So to review, 3rd order body-mind awareness is when your mind is really busy, monkey mind. From your perspective, your experience is always directed. You kind of feel like it's from in here to out there. And the X represents the thing, the object, the idea, or whatever it is that you're trying to, or that you're thinking about, whether consciously or not. And as we've said many times, we kind of live in that mode, probably most of us 99% of the time. That's just how our mind is. And generally, well, I'll go down a wormhole if I go to the subconscious here. When we talk about second order, that means directing your mind, but not just directing it to one thing. The real trick is to sustain that. And that's going to be absolutely critical in self-care, managing pain. You know, first order awareness, that's a real stretch for people where they're just beginning, right? Imagine someone comes to you and you're going to kind of meet with them maybe 5 or 6 weeks in a row, and you're going to be teaching them a lot about their own intentionality, and you're going to teach them how to empower them to be able to change their the object of their concentration, especially when they're kind of in crisis, when they're feeling acute pain. But first order is a great proxy for talking about sustaining focus, okay? Because when you're in second order awareness and you're sustaining your concentration, as in breathing or meditation or mantras, mudras, mandalas, where the object of your meditation is dynamic, why is that? Why do the ancient traditions do that? Because your mind wants to move. Third order body-mind awareness is how it always is. So what we're teaching people to do is how to direct their attention and to sustain that attention. So that's just a quick reminder. Okay, next slide, please, Rich. So as we said last time, I'm going to remind you of 3 elements. The first is to identify or notice. And usually you'll see that means you're noticing that you're in a third order state. All right, you're noticing that your consciousness is not really directed where you want it to be. The second element is directing your mind. All right, so that's like second order awareness. And then a third is sustain or maintaining focus. It's that sustaining that's going to allow you to habituate a kind of experience that will allow you to dramatically reduce as felt pain over time. Okay, next slide. So just let's reinforce these elements and put them next to third, second, and first order body-mind awareness. So the reason why that arrow says time is because it takes time to train people to do this. You tend to start out in third order body-mind awareness. So the question that we're going to be asking people, the person who's suffering an unsatisfactory life with persistent pain, is we're going to be asking them to notice and to identify how are they feeling at any given time. Where is their mind? So in other words, there's an element of acceptance here. No one is saying, I'm going to teach you something and your pain's going to go away. That's not it at all. There's a level of accepting some kind of dull, persistent pain. And so part of this is just noticing and identifying your state, that you're in a third order state, and that's not going to help you in your process of managing time. So then once we do that, we move to, oh, we notice that we're in a third order state, and now we're going to change the object of our attention in ways that are conducive to reducing our as felt pain. And then, as I said before, maybe first order is a proxy for sustaining, but you know, it's possible to sustain a second order experience without falling into first order body-mind awareness. I think that's probably a stretch to expect people to get there, but I want you to see, just as you had to learn, you were in third order when you learned how to drive a stick shift. And then at some point, you gradually figured out that you can actually drive your car without thinking about clutch, brake, accelerator, gear shift. But your mind is now just thinking about the act of driving. And at some point, you learned how to drive literally without thinking. Not unlike that metaphor, what you're going to be doing is helping people to habituate a second order mode so well that they are now pulled away from the kind of catastrophization that happens when someone is experiencing chronic pain. Okay, next slide, please. Again, this is just a quick review, but I want to catch you up for the metrics. Okay, now we're going to combine the 3 skills I've talked about, focus, relaxation, and connection, and the 3 elements. So under focus, where is your mind? Okay, the assumption is you're in a 3rd order mode, and you have to notice and identify that you're in that state. Then you're going to direct your attention, then you're going to sustain that concentration. Similarly, with respect to the skill of relaxation, you might start in a 3rd order state, and you don't know that you're holding tension mentally and physically. But once you notice that, now it's possible to change to a state of relaxation. And of course, you can teach people to do that through our key principles training. And similarly with connection, first you have to notice if you're in a 3rd order state, it is very likely you are not aware of others around you, because when you're really suffering from chronic pain, you tend to shut down and you lose that awareness because you're utterly focused on yourself and the experience that you're having. So again, there's a logic between 3 orders of body-mind awareness, the elements, and the 3 skills that are going to be matched up here. Okay, Rich. Okay, I just said that. So the idea is, or at least my experience teaching my 2 pilot groups, is this kind of training was extremely effective in managing as felt pain, and was extremely effective on the opportunity to reduce opioids and still actually have increased mobility and quality of life living with pain. So I'd like to think, there's something really here. It's just another example of, applying key principles in daily life. Okay, next slide, please. I think this is the build one, Rich. Okay, so the idea here is simple. We're going to do regular practices. The idea is to help that person to know what those practices are and that they're developing new behaviors, which will lead to new habits. And with pre and post testing, we can determine whether or not they are actually improving the skill of focus, relaxation, and connection. Now, before I jump into metrics, which is going to be the next slide, I just feel like I have to say this. Honestly, I don't care. I don't care about the metrics, because I'm talking about this from the perspective of someone suffering from pain. Maybe the medical community and other clinicians, everyone needs proof. I get that. I want to do it. I've worked hard to try to create something that can do that. But the metric that counts, if you're the person experiencing chronic pain, is your pain, are you able to manage it better? That's it. The evidence is in your as felt experience. So the personal testimony of the person who's improving the skills and learning to direct their mind and body in new ways in the effort to manage pain, that's really the only metric that counts for the person who's really suffering. A little side note, maybe I mentioned it before, I did a lot of work to try to understand the neuroscience behind all this. And when I did my 2 pilot groups, I can tell you this, I was all prepared with all the literature, peer review literature, stacks of stuff, videos ready to go. They could care less. They didn't want any of it. Zero, nada. They trusted me. And what they wanted to do is the experiential learning. Each time I tried to give them more, and I recognized, you know what? If you're the person suffering from pain, you're like, give me the stuff. Like, I'm just going to give you the benefit of the doubt. It's not like I'm a scientist and I'm going to critique the science that you're sharing with me. But the reason why I wanted to add it is because all of us potentially, just like learning how to do kyatsu, might be in a position to help someone suffering from pain. Before the call, I'm looking at you, Bob. I didn't know this, but you happened to mention, your wife is suffering from pain, and you're here hopefully to get some good information. And I probably, it's the case that your wife maybe doesn't care about the neuroscience and doesn't care about the measurements. She cares about, can you really help me, Bob? That's probably, or at least that's my experience, and it's been my experience with other people. But I want to give it to you so that we can present a responsible, holistic approach. Okay, that's catching us up to where we were. We'll leave it on the screen share, but Rich, if you can see people, does anyone have a question before we jump into the metrics now? Okay, I think we're all caught up then. Okay, let's go to the next slide then. Okay, I want to go through this slowly. I want to give you time to study it. So when I gave people this 10 questions, all I asked them to do, I didn't have it on a computer. All I asked them to do is I printed out hard copies and they circled their answer. And we're going to come back to that later. I said nothing about the metrics, nothing about the skills. I tried to be responsible and say, before we do anything, here's the waiver I'm going to ask you to sign. And then if you'll please, before we do any teaching whatsoever, just answer these questions. So I want you to wrap your mind around it just a little bit here. I have pain. Okay, that's called a general question. Is it constant or is it never? And everything in between. 5 different opportunities. Both extremes, sometimes in the middle is kind of a, well, it's 50-50. And then you've got another option on either side of the middle. Okay, my thoughts are scattered when I'm in pain. Well, guess what? That's a third order body-mind awareness. So if someone says constantly, yes, my thoughts are scattered, we now know that that's very typical, and that we know by helping them to notice what is third order and giving them the opportunity to change to second order. Now they have a strategy to do something about it. If they say, my thoughts are scattered when I'm in pain, and the answer is constantly. This is someone who's 24/7 has pain. Okay, I can focus my attention on other things when I'm in pain. That's very hard to do. So most people in pain are going to say, yeah, it's really hard for me to focus when I'm in pain. Next, pain stops me from doing the things I want to do. Yeah, that's true. All of the above, right? So I see people nodding here, and you begin to see, my pain makes my whole body tense. Yep, that's for sure. Sure does. I'm able to reduce my pain without medication. Most people will say, no, I'm not. I'm all ears. Give it to me. I have trouble falling and staying asleep. A lot of people have that anyway. It's called insomnia. But when you're suffering from pain, this is a real difficulty just to get off the pain enough to fall asleep, right? So then it's opioids, sleeping pills. It's not good options here. I'm trying to offer other options that are focused on wellness, not making you sick in different ways. I'm aware of others around me when I'm in pain. When you're in real pain, you're not aware. We know that. So we're just trying to get a framework of where is this person starting out? Just how bad is it? And not only that, this is their as felt testimony. This is them answering the questions based on their own personal experience. They're the expert. They're the laboratory. My pain makes it hard for me to fully engage with others. That makes sense, right? And you can see here now, maybe you're seeing some of these questions kind of sound like focus questions. Some of these questions kind of sound like relaxation questions. Some of these questions having to do with other people, oh, that's connection. So I think you can see that very clearly, and we'll see it again and again coming up. So let's just jump ahead, Rich. Okay, now what I'd like to do is to say where these questions came from was the product of a lot of time and effort. And one of the things that I tried to do is not make up something new, because I'm not an expert in this, but just go out there and find out what are some of the traditional therapies of managing pain that are different from just getting a shot, right? Like therapies that you can do something about it. And the two, CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, and ACT, sometimes referred to as ACT, but it's acceptance commitment therapy. So these, 6 different classifications of metrics: pain interference, satisfaction with life, pain intensity, impact of depression, committed action, and fear avoidance. This is the nomenclature in the rehab medicine parlance. And of course, you could have hundreds of questions related to managing pain. What I try to do is find 10 questions. And as you're going to see here in the next slide, 3 of these are connected to each of the 3 skills. Actually, Rich, let's just go to the next one because this is the same information. So here it's laid out. If you really look at it here, the map, the logic is right here. So again, you hadn't seen this before, but these are the same 10 questions. Notice, just take a look at 2 through 4. If you can improve your ability to focus, can you see how that's going to help you to navigate? You know, if you said my thoughts are scattered when I'm in pain, well, the answer is going to be always. That's a third order activity, and that's why it's called the identify or notice element. First, you have to notice, where are you, right? What's really going on in your mind and your body? Second one is the direct element. I can focus my attention on things other than pain. Great. We have a question accepted by the standard, metrics of CBT and ACT. We have it linked to the skill that we can teach, right? I'm choosing metrics purposefully that are aligned with the skills that we're teaching, right? Why would I choose a bag of metrics that might be good for various purposes, but if those metrics are not somehow aligned with the skills that we are teaching, namely focusing, relaxation, and connection, then they're not going to serve the purpose of someone taking a pre-test, doing training of skills improvement in these 3 areas, and then taking a post-test. So you want the skills that you're going to be imparting to be captured by the metrics themselves. You can see it again in relaxation. Identify means, are you in a third order state? My pain makes my whole body tense. I'm just, it's everywhere. Well, if it's everywhere, your mind is scattered, you're in a third order state. So the first thing we have to do is accept that that's how you feel right now. That's how your mind and body are. There's no judgment. You're not wrong. You're not a bad person because you're feeling this pain, but you first have to identify what's really going on. It's like, if you're going to tame the ox, first you got to put a halter on it, right? And then be able to lead it. So in the same way, these 10 questions are not only aligned with the 3 skills, but they're aligned with the process of moving from third order to second order. And then I would say first order, but it's really sustaining second order. Someone that you're just, they're not a Ki Aikido student. All they are is someone that like Bob's wife, and he's going to say, you know what, this is personal care, self-care. I'm just going to try to help in this way. Okay, Rich, let's go to the next one. Okay, so now I'm going to ask Shaner Sensei to unmute himself, and we're going to do something together that we just figured out. I mentioned to you that when I used these same questions with the 2 groups, I was doing it live and I just used hard copies. But what Shaner Sensei helped me to do just 2 days ago is, maybe most of us are familiar with this thing called Monkey Survey. Or is it Survey Monkey?
Survey Monkey.
Okay, Survey Monkey. So I want you to see that we're going to go through and we're going to fill it out together right here live and in person. So imagine that we could make a very simple survey like this available to you if you wanted to do that. And so you have the person, and you now have a link, and this doesn't take 2 minutes. But what I'm going to do now, Rich, are we ready to fill it out?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm pulling out, we'll call her Jane, but I have done, we've already entered pre and post tests, so we're just going to fill this out together. Jane, on her pre-test, I feel pain. She said a moderate amount of pain. Okay. Next question. My thoughts are scattered when I'm in pain. Her answer was always. Next, I can focus my attention on other things when I'm in pain. Very rarely, she said. Yep, rarely. Okay, where are we? My pain stops me from doing things I want to do. Very often, she said. So it's always, it'd be always.
Always, yeah.
My pain makes my whole body tense. She said constantly, so that's always on this grid. It doesn't matter, it's the same thing. Notice in this scale of 5, there's always on one end or never on the other, but we change the language. There's always a middle ground, and then 2 above middle, 2 below middle, which maybe Freiling Sensei will have an opportunity to explain a little later. Okay, I'm able to reduce my pain without medication. She said, what'd she say? Sometimes. No, she said often. So that's good.
So that's usually, right?
Yeah.
Second from the top.
Yeah, second from the top. Yeah. I have trouble falling and staying asleep, always. I'm aware of others around me when I'm in pain, sometimes. My pain makes it hard for me to fully engage with others, always. I'm impatient and easily agitated with others. She said rarely, because she said she wants to be nice to everybody. So she just does her best. Okay, so you get the hang of it. Okay. So now, Rich, what are we doing? We're going to the next slide just to see how that worked.
Yeah, so what happens is we then compile the results. And so the next slide is what those results look like. Right.
So in this, Rich, why don't you, you'll be more accurate and take less time if you explain it.
All right, I'll go quickly. But what's really interesting about these results and the way the questions were organized and the way they were delivered, it allows us to collect results across several different headings. So we can collect results against her ability to focus. We can collect results against her ability to relax, to connect, and also on the next slide, to identify, to direct, and sustain. So we're collecting results against large areas, which then allows Sensei to go in and understand exactly what are the deficits, so to speak, that she has that Sensei can then begin to develop. Now, the way typical research is done is it's like a quintile analysis. So quintile is the 5 answers that you have the possibility to ask. And if you answer the top 2, that's a top 2 box answer. If you answer the bottom 2, it's a bottom 2 box answer. And then you have the neutral. So if you answer top 2 box, we score it as a top box. If it's a bottom 2 box, it's a bottom or a neutral. And that allows us to compile results in this sort of broad, but still very directionally relevant way. So Shaner Sensei, we can start with the skills because based on her results, you're able to see what skills are stronger than others.
Yeah, but let me do a disclaimer. Like, Rich is so good that he's really building this out forward looking. And so what he just said, I'm envisioning if you're doing this with somebody, well, the difference is you're doing it with one person, presumably, in which case you ask them to fill this out, and that person is getting, in a sense, customized feedback based on their own self-assessment, their pretest. But what I wanted to say truthfully, when I taught my 2 groups, I didn't have this ability to break this down. I just let them take a pre-test and a post-test because I had like 8 people and I was just teaching them all the same things, keep one point, relax completely, all these things, all these different exercises. And we developed a really nice warm community over 6 weeks. So I was not taking the survey and then custom designing training because I had a group. But what Freiling Sensei is saying here is absolutely true. You now kind of see propensities of of the person in a very basic way. But nevertheless, that person's going to feel like, oh, wow, this is my score. This is me. And maybe maybe that's empowering. I don't know. It could very well be. Okay, so Rich, I just wanted to clarify that. Where were you going now?
Well, I think it's interesting. If you were to look at this, it's Jane, right? So Jane clearly has some difficulty or a challenge in being able to focus. All the questions that were about focus, she answered in the bottom two box.
Right.
For relaxation, it was a little bit different. She actually had a couple answers, I think one or two that was top box, but the rest was still bottom. But then connection, there's a very even split. And I think that gives an interesting insight into probably where the development needs to probably happen first, which is this area of focus.
Yeah, yeah, and this is really so simple because remember we had 3 questions. So this tells you in all 3 questions on focus, Jane answered in the bottom extreme. All 3 of them. Under relaxation, 2 out of the 3 were bottom, and 1 was actually above middle. And on connection, I think that's interesting because her personality, she even said, her green box on connection was, do you get agitated with others? And her self-image is, I don't get agitated. I'm a really nice person. I don't scream and shout. And so she gave herself a green light on that, but it's kind of like a question mark for me. She's just saying, okay, well, it just is what it is. It's only telling you a little bit. But let's now, should we do the post now, Rich?
Well, let's go. I think the other slide's interesting too.
Okay.
So the same results, we can also quantify her ability to identify, direct, and sustain. And when you look at her ability to identify pain, it's weaker than her ability to direct and sustain, just based on her results. Again, very generalized and but it is directional. And again, this gives Shaner Sensei some insight on how potentially to help Jane in a very sort of customized and personal way.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And so what this tells you is her ability to focus. Well, Freiling Sensei and I were talking yesterday, and he mentioned, how Toi Sensei always taught us with the 4 basic principles. He said, some people are led by the rules of the mind, and some people are led by rules of the body. It's just their personal makeup. And so you have to be, as a teacher, you have to understand, is this person going to learn better by teaching them physical things, or are they more of a concentrator? And Toi Sensei would say, if you have one, you have them all, because of the 4 basic principles, 2, he'd say, are focusing on your mind, your concentration, and 2 are doing things like relax completely and keep weight underside, is more teaching through the body. Keeping one point and extending ki is more teaching through the mind. But what we're seeing here is not only is she on the bottom 3 on focus, but when it comes to identify on the next slide, she's also 2 out of 3 there. And so it really is starting with a stepping back, noticing how are you reacting and responding yourself mentally, physically, and emotionally to pain. What's really going on? Because until you, again, contain that ox, you don't really know what to work on. Okay.
So the next slides are the post, what happens after you have taken her through this program.
Yeah, so we won't take time to fill it out again, but when you go to the post, the next slide, but her self-assessment was like remarkably different. Like she was answering almost everything in the green now. That's just delightful. But even more important than this, well, we might as well show the next slide too. Again, on focus and identify, she just like hit home run. So you can just see, these are the exact same questions with her answers. But more than that, It's not like they go, oh, wow, look at my score. Look what I got. What score did you get? That's not even in anyone's frame of reference, right? Because it's like, wow, on our last day, you know what they did? They gave me a surprise party. I did it for free. We just ate like lots of cookies and coffee and tea and socialized, and they just went on and on and on with their testimonial of how valuable this training was. I will say that it gave me a nice gift certificate to Barnes and Noble so I could go buy a nice book. But these were just really wonderful people, and as I say, their results were really incredible. And that was just 2 little times, nothing scientific, no effort to get a really diverse population. This is just at its infancy. I'm just saying that this has come up because I'm thinking, okay, maybe I've got too much time on my hands. But I'm thinking, you know what? This has worked for me. Why not share it with other people? Okay, so let's pause here. Oh, wait, am I? No, let's keep going and then we'll pause and we'll either just have some discussion or we'll keep going into the exercises. So we've been kind of working through this deck now for 3 sessions. And the summary is, with the training that I think we can give, people can stop what in the literature is called catastrophizing their as felt pain. In other words, the loop, the mental loop, the 3rd order loop that can't focus. Your mind is scattered. Your whole body feels tense. You cannot sleep. You can't pay attention to others. You are locked into an inward looking cycle that leads to depression, isolation, and a loss of quality of life. It sounds like a very terrible word, but in a sense it is. But if we link this back to what was going on in the neuroscience, catastrophizing is creating an excitatory response as opposed to an inhibitory response, just to try to pull all these things together. Pain intensity is one of the measures that we just talked about. So can you reduce the intensity of the pain? And I think the answer is yes. And that's why we call it as felt pain, that you're doing something with your mind. You're changing your ability to relax under stress with pain. You're changing your ability to focus and calm yourself and train your mind to think about things and sustain them without being absorbed always on the pain. And I want to explain, I have great compassion for people. This is not mind over matter. This isn't just be tough and don't think about it. That just won't work. But if you give people strategies, and I think the most empowering thing is when we teach people the 4 basic principles, just take it back to your first experience, how empowering it is to realize when we change the way we think, when we change our focus, as simple as up here, probably where you are when you're in pain, you're all up here. And then if you can just learn how to keep one point, relax your body, expand your peripheral vision, suddenly your relationship to pain can change. And that's what we're really working about, so that it can become sustained and a habit over a lifetime. The result, improving the overall quality of your life. I think I have one more slide here just to wrap it up. I mentioned this to you in another session one time. But I want to remind us, whether we're in pain or not, all the time, 4 things are going on, whether we're conscious of it or not. And a lot of our waking stage, we're doing things unconsciously, by the way. So at any given time in your life, what are you going to focus on? That's why we have a personal development affirmation. That's why we think about a tenshoku. What do I want to do with my life? Well, when you're managing pain, and we're now taking a real laser-like focus to that activity, then we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to focus on? And that's why the first exercise that we'll get to, whether it's today or next time, is that personal development affirmation, what Toi Sensei called a tenshoku. It has to be very, very clear. You have to be aware of it. So could you have a personal development affirmation that's going to guide your ability to improve 3 skills to better manage your as-felt pain? When you focus on something, it has meaning. And if you can become passionate about what you're focusing on, it's a lot easier to sustain your concentration. Think about that. When you're passionate about something, you like it. Maintaining your intentionality is easy. That's why time flies when we're having fun, because we're so engaged in the activity, we don't notice time. How about this? You're so engaged in your activity, you don't notice pain. That's why managing time and managing pain is similar, as I started out on the very first part 1. Nobody manages time unless you change planets. If you're on Jupiter, I guess your days or your years are going to be really long. I'm not sure how fast Jupiter spins, but a year on Jupiter is like a big circle. Anyway, so the question is, what is the meaning behind what you're focusing on? And then how do you feel? This is for daily life. What does it mean? How does it feel? But when you're talking specifically about managing pain, it's really good to kind of get into the process of how are you feeling at different times when you're engaging whatever the kind of persistent pain it is, because for everyone, the source of it could be different. And then finally, the Toi Sensei's whole thing. At the end of the day, it's what do you want to choose? A bright, happy life or a dark, gloomy one? Just like in the Shokushu Plus life. So once you understand that it's possible to change your focus, that it's possible for you to relax even when you're experiencing pain, once you realize that there are strategies to help you engage with others that are going to improve your overall quality of life with pain, then guess what? Now you're taking responsibility. You are no longer a victim. You are saying, you know what? I have a friend here who's going to teach me some skills that I didn't know about. I'm going to learn what does it mean to use my whole iceberg? And then I'm going to proceed through exercises in daily life. They're going to help me to improve these 3 skills: focus, relaxation, and connection. Okay, so I think we got through the metrics clearly, I hope. And, we only have like 13 minutes left. So rather than jumping into the exercises, I would love to hear questions or comments. What I'm doing or not doing. I just want to be really clear. All I'm doing, is just like Toi Sensei said, you can apply key principles in business, and I would travel in Otomo with him, going to different companies where he would teach, key classes, weekly classes, sometimes at corporation. Seiko Watch Company was one I remember. That was Toi Sensei was close to the CEO of that company. But anyway, it's something that you have to do. It's just another application of key principles in business. So it occurred to me now having, 51 years after I shattered my leg, I never had a strategy. I never knew what elements were. I never knew what metrics were around this. All I did, honestly, Toi Sensei would say, don't think about it. I didn't complain to him about my ankle pain. What he would do is he was really strict. And I'll have to say, as he got older, he did less so. But when I was with Uchideshi, and even just training in Hawaii, when I was in college, when we had class, everyone sat seiza the entire class. You sat good seiza. You sat straight up. Your posture was excellent, seiza. And when our knees were killing us, like Toi Sensei, maybe he was talking for an hour and 15 minutes and we're sitting seiza. And it's just not cool. If you have to go to Agora, then you bow, then go to Agora and then get back. And then Toi Sensei, he'd see us squirming, especially my gaijin knees, and he would tell us, don't think about your knees, just focus on me. Think about what I'm teaching. In other words, what I guess what I'm realizing now, he's saying, put your mind, concentrate on me and what I'm teaching. And if you're really concentrating on it, you won't, in today's language, you'll stop catastrophizing the fact that your legs are killing you to the point that you can't hear him. Well, just like when we used to do misogi in different ways, Sokushin no Gyo, and it became more relaxed, more calm. Same thing with breathing. Everything became more calm, because what Toi Sensei recognized, if you're sitting there and you're in pain trying to sit seiza just to like be a good samurai, it doesn't help you to be calm and keep one point and relax. It's a lot easier to just say, why don't you sit comfortably where you can keep one point, as opposed to trying to just, you got to be a samurai, so suck it up. That was a lot of our early training. So you can be grateful that you started later. But that's how my brain worked. I didn't have a system. It was just like, do you want a bright, happy life or a dark, gloomy one? And I was a very active person. When I shattered my leg, I was a ski racer. I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm going to be disabled. It was like, how quickly can I get back on my skis? You know, I still want to be a world-class athlete. This isn't going to hold me back. I said, those of you who ski, the Lang Boot Company had to make me a customized pair of ski boots with a 1/4-inch lift in the bottom of the heel and a 7-degree cant, where the upper cuff of my right ski boot would be like this, because then it would match the angle of my crooked leg. And if that was the case, if the boot could hug my crooked leg, my ski would run flat. For those of you who ski, if I put my foot in a straight up ski boot like this, where the upper cuff is up and down, my body weight would push the ski boot like this. The ski boots are very stiff. And now I would be riding on the outside rail of my ski, which you do not want going 90 miles an hour. A, it's not safe, and B, it's slow. You want your ski to ride flat. So anyway, what I'm trying to do right now is just share real time. You know, I think there's a way to approach this that might help people whose life right now suffers, perhaps unnecessarily. And that's why I'm doing this.
Shaner Sensei, I have a question. Would you characterize the pathway of identify, direct, and sustain? Would you characterize that as a universal truth in how people develop themselves?
Yeah. And remember, Toi Sensei is the one that helped me develop that. If there was anything original in my PhD dissertation, which was my first book, The Body-Mind Experience in Japanese Buddhism, the template behind that entire book, the whole analysis of all of the Buddhist texts in that whole book, was based on the one novel thing, which was the development of these 3 orders of body-mind awareness. And I've used the same thing to work with elite athletes and musicians, because it's all about moving from a scattered state of 3rd order to a sustained focus of concentration, with an emphasis on the word sustained. That's why it takes training. It's one thing to say, oh, think about one thing, but can you sustain that? That's why you do breathing. That's why meditation is so important. And those are 2 of the 14 exercises. But that's absolutely critical. And yes, I think it's universal, because all of our experience is intentional. All of it is directed. Our whole life, we feel like we're in here in our heads, and we get sense experience from the outside world. And then we act and we look and we change our direction and we do different things. And our whole life is kind of like from in here to out there. So that is a standard model of how we live, how we feel our intentional consciousness. And certainly, like I said, Toi Sensei is the one that helped me come up with this. Remember, it was all based on Sai Kon Tong, trying to understand what's really going on. what is this triple sage really doing, Sensei? How do we do that? And how is Shinjin Gakudo, how is body-mindology that we are teaching here in Kino Kenkyu Kai, how is that connected with this path of training from Keiko to Shugyo? So again, Saikon Ton, remember, were training wheels for me to figure out, for Toi Sensei to help me figure out what's this third, second, and first order. And then we had a model that worked beautifully, analyzing the primary writings of Dogen Kigen, the founder of the Shoto Shu, what we refer to as Zen Buddhism, and Kobodaishi Kukai, who is the founder of the Shingon Shu. Crystal, I saw your hand was up.
Yes. I have a question. Some people always like to complain and go back to the complaint. And how do you work with them?
Yes, well, everything we teach is to be positive. So thank you for asking that, Crystal, because it reminds me to say something I forgot to mention. You know, when I was doing the Kyatsu school in Japan, I remember I said Toi Sensei only taught me Kyatsu for 5 years. In the Kyatsu school in the West, people think, oh, you learn the lines and then you learn where to put your hands and then you follow these lines. That's like 5%. The real thing is like making a key connection to the person. And what you learn when you become a certified Kyatsu therapist, the way they did it in Japan before, is you're teaching, what Toi Sensei is teaching is how to teach the 4 basic principles and how to teach breathing and meditation. So in the act of this teaching, the Kyatsu person comes in, you'd think they just, sign up and then they say, okay, lay on the table and I'm going to do Kyatsuho. No, there's talking about posture. There's teaching them how to keep one point. It's not the case. You want the person who's coming in needing Kyatsuho to heal. And so what you want to do is to treat them and have them not have to come in to see you. So to do that, you have to teach them how to relax, how to focus, how to change maybe from, Crystal, what you're saying is, yeah, some people are just negative. So you're gradually, just like coming into the dojo, there's really not too much place for negativity when you walk into the dojo. You put on your gi, your posture is ready, you're going to bow in, everyone's all Genki and plus because you're training. And so I think the answer is, maybe just like you do in your psychotherapy practice, is you have to work with people on maybe their life will be better if they could change from just having a negative outlook to a positive outlook. So we're teaching positivity because we can. But we have an advantage. When people are taking a key test, when you're teaching them how to keep weight underside, what you're really teaching them is they have the power to change their state in ways that improve their balance, stability, power, clarity of thinking, all good things. So if they like all those good things, my experience is over time, even the most negative person gradually, drop by drop, becomes a more positive person because they recognize all those negative thoughts are not helping them to take advantage of mind and body unification. It's hard to be negative and have your mind and body unified and use the power of your whole iceberg. That, I don't know if that satisfies. There's no trick, but the idea of teaching someone to manage pain is teaching them how to take responsibility. That's why all 14 exercises in Living with the Wind at Your Back, kind of my version of Key in Daily Life, were very easily modifiable in those documents that I've already shared with you, such that they could be tailored to someone who really, as their focus, wanted to better manage their as-felt pain.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Just a brief one on my wife's story. She's very positive. She breathes and relaxes. And then one of two things happens. One, if she talks to friends and she has that activity, she's fine. And then if she really feels bad, she turns back to the morphine.
And what does she have strategies when she really feels bad other than the morphine?
No.
Okay. May I ask, Bob, and you don't have to share because this is a recorded call, like in front of everybody, but is it what kind of pain? If I said neuropathic pain versus other kinds?
She has a large tumor in her abdomen, which is pushing on everything, including her back.
Okay, yes.
And the back pain, you know, that pain is just intense sometimes.
Yes, yes, I understand that. And if you remember that the shortest video I showed you on the 5 phases of nociceptive pain, those nociceptive receptors usually we think of them as being in our extremities or in our skin. You know, we get a cut and we go, oh, ouch, there's that pain. But to Bob's point, you have those nociceptive receptors on the outside of all of your internal organs. And so when you're having a problem with an organ like pressure, like a tumor or something pressing on an organ, that is lighting up those nociceptive receptors. And that it can be extremely, extremely painful. And so we're just talking about strategies, like, could we try some strategies, you know, especially when she's in crisis mode. So we'll discuss.
I think she should talk to more friends. You know?
Well, and isn't it interesting?
I mean, that really is interesting when someone calls,
Yep.
even though she sounds groggy and all,
Yep.
she just loves to have that call. And during that time, you know, there's no complaint about the pain.
Yes, yes. And interesting with our subject Jane, where we filled out the form, her green part on connection had to do with the fact that she wanted to be a good friend. Like she's not agitated. Rarely is she agitated towards another person. Mm-hmm. Instead, having another person there just to converse with or be with or talk to, by definition, takes your mind off your pain.
Right.
And so believe it or not, going to exercise class, getting outside your home and doing things with other people is highly recommended. This is a major activity of Dr. Jim Eubanks at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, right, trying to debunk the myth that when people go into fear avoidance because of their pain, they won't exercise. They won't even go outside and take a walk with a friend because they're catastrophizing already. But if you would just do that activity, somehow get over the hump, you enjoy it. You enjoy the company of the other person. And what it's doing is causing, remember that metric, pain interference. It's interfering with the pain signal, and it's giving you greater satisfaction. It's literally reducing as felt pain. So working with people to understand what are those things they can do to get their mind off of the pain, where suddenly, as Bob, you said, it totally makes sense to me. She goes inward, and then when you get sucked in and you really start focusing on the pain, you can't get off it. And in which case she says, okay, I need opioids, morphine, whatever. Right. And it would be great if we could just, because those have sometimes very serious side effects. And if we could create strategies to help people without that, that would be just wonderful.
I think we should have her friends call her every hour.
Yeah.
Every hour, another phone call, she'd be doing fine. Thank you, Sensei.
Oh, you're very welcome. Hey, I'm very respectful of everyone's time here. I want to thank you for showing your faces and participating. I will say this, the next 2 weeks then, I keep promising, we'll go through the 14 exercises. I would ask you, Rich has kindly been reminding people in the announcements, but if you have another screen or if you would print them out, I want to, the exercises are like, full pieces of paper, like a Word document. And it might be too hard to fill up the screen, but I want to, if I'm looking at the same sheets you are, I know Matthew can work his editing wizardry from Japan, but the text is pretty small on the actual exercise descriptors. So the more familiar we are with that, the better. So I want to thank everyone again. I love the fact that you show up faithfully, especially across multiple time zones and areas. And I didn't know we were going to have this call this morning because Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina, the largest internet provider of which we subscribe, was out in 3 states. And we got the signal back about 2:30 this afternoon. So I thought we were going to have to punt on this call, but I'm glad you're here and I could be here, and we covered a lot of good territory. Okay, I love you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sensei.
Have a wonderful week. Those of you from Europe, thank you. I love it. You guys are great. You make my day. Thank you.